Hey everyone, welcome to our brand new series on private money lending. I'm Bridget, and I'm here with Wendi, who has years of experience doing exactly what we are going to talk about in this series, using your own money to fund real estate deals and earn passive income. We're going to talk a little bit with an introduction and get us started with what is PML, why do people do it, right? Who are the borrowers? And, teach a bit more about protecting ourselves with these transactions. Wendi, I'd love to kick off with a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Why don't you, well, we can start with an introduction. We'll start with you, and then maybe I can just do a brief introduction as well.
Okay, well, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I tell people I speak three languages: English, real estate, and finance, because that's pretty much my life. For the last 10 years, I built and sold a company. That was in 2023. And I have funded just over $3 million in private money transactions in the last 7 years. And I'd like to help others do the same. That's why I thought this would be a great idea to do this series with you.
This will be great. And I'm excited because my background, for those that are watching, I have a long history in the corporate business environment in human resources. And so benefits were always kind of a topic that I've touched on, and 401ks and investing kind of spilled into my path because I just love understanding money, understanding, how do we use the private money in real estate transactions. And I'm an entrepreneur at heart too. Didn't realize that, didn't know until I started to realize how much of the curiosity bug bit me when it came to private money. And then, of course, in real estate investing. So I'd love for us to dive deeper for those who are looking for more information and trying to understand what is this that we talk of when we say there's private money lending. So why don't we start with that? What is private money lending, Wendi?
Well, private money lending generally is when you become the bank. Most people who go out to get a mortgage, they go to a mortgage company or lender, a bank, and they apply for a mortgage. They get what we call pre-approved. They submit their application with all their information about their job history, how much money they make, how long they've been on the job, what their debts are. And a lender comes up with, whether or not they think they can afford the mortgage payment. That's traditional money lending, which would be considered a conventional mortgage. Private money lending, on the other hand, is when you become the bank. The person who's looking to borrow the money then has to answer your questions and your list of questions. You get to make the rules on who you lend your money to. And you have to decide what qualifications this person has to bring and the project has to bring to you in order to meet your own guidelines. So it's essentially you being the bank.
Right. And there's this terminology that we all hear about, and what exactly is this, which we'll dive, I'm sure, deeper into, what is called due diligence, right? This process that if we are the lender and the private money, we're doing what's called due diligence. And I'm sure we'll dive into that into this series, but why do people want to become a private money lender?
Well, I think people become a private money lender for various reasons. One being, they may have already been through a real estate history and amassed some money and they want to invest it. They want to make some money with their money, but maybe they don't want to go swing a hammer anymore or deal with tenants or leaky toilets. I call it mailbox money.
Hmm.
So if you've got money that you want to invest, you don't want to do all that hard stuff, then you learn to do your due diligence and underwrite the deals yourself, become the bank, and start getting checks in the mail every month.
Yeah, I love it. And my corporate background, there's even other strategies. So if anyone who is watching here thinking, well, I don't have a lot of free cash sitting around in my accounts at the bank, you still can be a private money lender with money from old retirement accounts. And what I mean by old retirement accounts is that if you're an active, employee at the moment, those monies cannot be used for these real estate transactions because those corporate plans or those business plans have investments to choose from. However, if you have those 401k, 403bs, any of those other accounts that are no longer active with an employer, those dollars can be used also in real estate transactions and using what's called a self-directed IRA and have a separate account. It's still treated like retirement money, so it's not mailbox money in the sense like we're talking about when you're using your own capital versus being able to use just those dollars that are sitting there. They may not be performing, and you could definitely create more of those returns with backed by real estate. You're not dealing with the stock market shooting up and down. You're getting to use those monies backed by real estate. So, and we'll dive more into like, what does that actually mean when it's backed by real estate? I'm sure we'll deep dive into that.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't even realize, they left a job or two and they have these 401ks or 403bs sitting there that they never did anything with, that they haven't even rolled over into an account that they direct. So some people watching this may have money out there that they could invest that they don't even know that they could use it to get into real estate.
And it could be just sitting in kind of just this stale state under cash, meaning that when those plans are no longer active with said, like I said, employer, they just sit in cash. So they're
Yeah,
not
they
actually
make good
making,
interest at that
yeah,
rate. That's
they're
awful.
not making anything. And that's a scary thought because that money is just dying,
To
not
go to
working.
work.
Yeah, it's not working for you. And you think about money as kind of a current, right? The currency. What happens to our current in the ocean, right? It's constantly churning, and that's what happens with money. If you let it sit stale, it's not churning, it's not current, it's not creating more money. So in the utilization of these funds can actually make some more money instead of sitting there in cash. And we know there's trillions of dollars in these 401k plans. I'm sure we're probably thinking, well, who are these borrowers? Who are they? What does that look like? And how do we get involved with somebody who might be looking to borrow maybe our money that we can earn, better interest and returns on? So, Wendy, maybe you could help us understand a bit about that.
Well, I can give you some real life examples of some of the borrowers that I have funded, some of the projects that I've funded over the course of the last 7 years. Some of them have been people who are building sober living homes. Sober living seems to be a popular avenue right now for investors. I funded sober living homes where they've come to me for the money to complete the construction to turn it into multiple more bedrooms in the house. You need 7 or 8 bedrooms. And they already have an operator that they work with that's going to lease up the property when it's done. So there's some added security there, which is nice. I've also funded some land deals where somebody had land that was nearly adjacent to a really big subdivision, a really big known builder. And I funded the deal where he used my money to do all the offsites to develop his land to almost match the units in that subdivision next door. And he already had it sold to the builder when he came to me, which was also really cool.
Wow.
So I'm all about building in extra value,
Yeah.
in security. And we'll talk about that when we talk about due diligence. I've also funded some co-living homes for special needs and another situation where there was an operator. In this case, I dealt directly with the operator who was developing the home in order to bring in the special needs people because that's what they run. I've developed a good number of relationships with people building subdivisions where I've funded multiple homes in a subdivision. I've also done many fix and flip loans for people who have, some skin in the game. My underwriting guidelines include you having some skin in the game. So, and we'll talk about how to get that.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I'm sure many are thinking, what does that mean? Skin in the game. But that can be a deep dive, certainly as we progress and explain in more detail, which I love. And first of all, I want to highlight that thought and concept of how we can actually make these transactions help people, right? This isn't just because you were describing your sober living. You've also helped those with sober living and co-living, making affordable living possible because we all know
Excellent.
how expensive it is to own a house outright and ongoing expenses and just the upkeep of a full property. And I myself am in that same space as far as sober living and encouraging that we can use our real estate transactions to help people to create affordable living for those that don't maybe necessarily need an entire, house or a full property to operate and have to like pay all the cost to maintain these, the real estate itself. So, but we treat it like a business. So that's a big part of how we look at having this private money and having access to it for real estate transactions. Wendi, anything else that you'd like to touch on that you think's really important for someone who's trying to understand what this all looks like and what it means?
I think really most importantly, if this is something that you're interested in getting involved in, get the education behind you before you get started. There's so many pitfalls and easy ways to make a mistake. And the last thing I would want is for anybody to lose their money. Getting that education is what's going to give you the foundation so that you see the red flags when they come up as you go, rather than unfortunately having to hurdle over them while you're in the thick of it. Just getting a basic education of, how do I look at this whole scenario? It's not just, a friend hitting you up going, hey, I'm doing a flip, I need $200,000. That there's a lot of risk involved with something like that. But looking at it as a business and getting the foundation that you need to turn this into a business, which is, learning how to vet the property, learning how to vet the borrower, learning how to vet the deal. Learning your own level of risk. The more deals you look at, the more risks you are faced with, and you can make a decision of whether or not, this is a level of risk that you're willing to take or, you're not.
Right.
So it's something that you can very easily develop if you take the time, watch our series, and get the basic education. And, we can help you do that. For
Right.
sure.
And I love there was this terminology as you and I were talking about this like hopium, right? There's just this like I think everybody might find this a bit funny is that you can't just go out there and just hope everything's gonna be okay. That's
No,
not a
you
strategy.
cannot. You
Yep.
cannot go on hopium.
Oh,
Hopium is your friend wants 200K and you're hoping that everything's going to work out. That's hopium.
right.
You need to vet the project. You need to look at all of the underwriting, and it'd be great also to run it by somebody who's done it before, to get the confidence to jump in, and then jump in. Just like me, I started somewhere, had to jump in somewhere.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely. And we're here to help educate and help provide that information to encourage the steps to learning and to getting to a place where you can confidently lend and understand the private money lending and how it can benefit you and that passive income that you don't have to have the hammer and the nails and
Amen.
deal with the toilets, right? So uh, I love that we can have these conversations and educate. So any last thoughts before we wrap up, Wendi?
No, I'm just super happy to be here. This is fun. I love finance. I love talking about private lending, and I'm excited to do this series with you, Bridgette.
This is going to be wonderful. So thank you so much for listening. Like and share this video if you found value, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Absolutely. See ya.